Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo is always joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. Man, do we have a lot to talk about tonight.
It's a fat one. We got a fat show.
This is a fat one. We're gonna try not to be too long-winded on these topics, but there's a bunch of topics, a lot of things going on. Let's just jump right in, Joe. Let's start with some quick hits. I know you had something in mind.
But we got to go into the breach, Joe.
We are going into the breach.
You got to give
once more, dear friends, let us go into that breach.
If I don't hear that, something's wrong.
Well, it's like Henry V. That's why he said it. He was trying to rally the troops to go in there. There's like fire bombs going off all over the place as they're storming the breach. But let us give a quick shout out. Joe Campo in Brooklyn, Jonathan Ross up in Toronto at HolyFaith Media. We're rocking and rolling here. We got a whole new set. We're doing this because we're having success, because all of you have joined our show, are watching our show. Our audience is growing. Our viewership is growing. We got the backdrop, so when Artie from Belleville checks in, he's not going to see any books anymore. No more books, Artie. But yeah, so let's rock and roll.
Let's go into a quick hit. In doing the research for the show, I came across something out of New York that I thought was very important to note. It came out in July. But I want to give a timeline. Artie's here.
Artie's here. Artie, no books. We just mentioned you, Artie. No books.
No books. So like I was saying, I want to give a timeline. When I was doing the research for the show, I came across this. I missed it when it happened. It happened in July. But let me just give you a timeline. In January, New York State passed the most aggressive abortion law in the United States of America. There's not even a question. It is by far the most aggressive bill that is on the books. Of course, that was passed by Andrew Cuomo. Of course, just to note too, sadly, he's Catholic, which is very sad. We need to pray for him.
Does that mean I can't call him disgraziato?
Well, fair enough. But at the end of the day, I got to note that too, which is very sad. So under that law, and we covered it in the past show, you can abort a child 1 day before delivery. Now, we all know what a child looks like when the child is born. We also know what a sonogram, when you look at sonograms, 1 day before the child is born, you could legally abort in New York State. So that was January 22nd, on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade. In July, so 6 months later, New York was the first again to pass a law.
Now put your seatbelt on, because this isn't a joke. This isn't like a parody. Okay, we're not being sarcastic. What Joe's about to say should just make your brains explode. Go ahead, Joe.
New York, in July of 2019, it was the first state to decriminalize declawing a cat.
No, criminalizing.
Criminalizing. I'm sorry.
Declawing a cat. I know it gets all confusing, because honestly it is.
But so basically they said it was inhumane to declaw a cat, so they basically outlawed it. You cannot do that in the state of New York. Yet you can kill a child 1 day before it's delivered. Now, juxtapose those two thoughts for you,
right?
In your mind.
And they use the word. Inhumane. With the way that cats are treated when they're declawed. And this is, like Joe said, on January 22nd, this is the same state that said babies could be killed the day before they're born.
These people are sick. And again, I'll say it again, they need our prayers. Their intellects are darkened. You cannot, if you put those two things together, I don't know how, even someone who's slow, I don't know how you could piece those two laws together. And
the sad part is that if you're a person who says, no, I'm declawing my cat, okay, they'll call you all sorts of names. Of course, you'll be deplorable if you do that, okay? They'll look to fine you. I think the fine is going to be $1,000 a day or something, or $1,000 fine and potential jail time, okay? They'll vilify you. But these people support baby killing. And if you point out that they support baby killing, which makes them baby killers, and those who support baby killing, then they'll say, oh, you're being so judgmental. In other words, because a woman's just exercising her constitutional right. Do you see how nuts these people are?
No, but it is nuts, and that is completely crazy. I can't. When I read this, and I said only 6 months prior to this law passed, they legalized the murder, and it is a murder,
right,
of a child 9 months in the womb. 9 months. And here's another thing, folks. when you vote for these people, this is what you're voting for.
This is what you get.
And not only are you voting for brutality with regard to the abortion, you're voting for lunacy. These people are Looney Tunes.
It's outright insanity.
They're Looney Tunes.
Decoying cats all of a sudden becomes a problem. There's a lot. I read that article. A lot of I forgot which doctor it was. He said, "What are you talking about?" No, there's decoying cats is something that people do all the time. And they come up with, "Oh, it's inhumane," and they feel so much
pain the rest of their life.
I don't know if that baby who's at 8 months and 29 days. I mean, I'm sure that baby's feeling a whole lot of pain, writhing in the womb because of people like Andrew Cuomo and Bill de Blasio. And they're worried about cats. Let that sink in, like Joe said, when we think even for a second. All you middle-of-the-road people out there, we love you, but you have to think about these things when you vote for these people. They might tell you they're going to give you your union contract and you don't have to worry about it and everything's A-okay. But remember, when you vote for them because they're going to give you your union contract, you cops, firemen, teachers, all of you, okay? Remember, this is also what you're voting for. The sheer insanity of the Democratic Party, because this is all Democrats.
It is crazy.
This is all Democrats.
This is nothing short of craziness. And frankly, it's embarrassing. It's actually embarrassing.
Really? Yeah, because the rest of the world must look at it and say, you don't value human life, but you value if a cat feels a little pain because they're getting declawed. Give me a break. Anyway, that was a quick hit.
Joe has something to tell us about something he came across in Michigan regarding foster care. I think it's very important.
This is an important story, and the only reason why I'm doing it is a quick hit instead of an extended story is because there's a lot to get into, okay? So we're going to keep it a quick hit, but I want to emphasize, as Joe and I always emphasize, the need to vote for Donald Trump because of judges. Take everything else, not that it's not important, put it on the side, it's secondary. The primary reason for voting for Donald Trump is because of judges. Let's go to Michigan. Now, Michigan seems to be annoying. Like when you say let's go to California or the Netherlands, I get nervous, okay? Michigan is showing a little bit of sanity. So I'm going to just quote for a second. Now, this comes from the Catholic League. I think everybody should listen to Bill Donahue at the Catholic League, or at least read his articles and subscribe to the Catholic League if these things interest you, even if you're not Catholic. But you value, number one, religious freedom and the protection of your family against insanity, all right? Catholic League is an important resource for all of us, okay, who believe in some sort of sanity and a moral society. So this is from Bill Donahue at the Catholic League. So he commented on a federal court ruling in Michigan, all right, where a federal district court judge, which Donald Trump has nominated and gotten on the bench, many of these judges in Michigan, has upheld the religious freedom of a Catholic foster care and adoption agency while calling out the religious targeting engaged by Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. Now, she's an anti-Catholic bigot, and Bill Donahue goes through a host of reasons why. And the issue at stake was whether faith-based foster care and adoption agencies can refer same-sex individuals and unmarried heterosexual couples. Now, remember, they're not singling out homosexuals. They're saying homosexuals and unmarried couples, heterosexual couples, to other agencies rather than place children with them for foster care and adopted. They were just simply referring them. And this district court judge, and I just want to mention him, Robert Jonker, explained in a 32-page ruling that the Michigan legislature enacted a law upholding the right of faith-based agencies to adhere to the teachings of their church. You know what that means for Attorney General Dana Nessel? Screw you! That's what that means. The judge is saying, screw you, because the law is clear on this. You cannot target this group, in this case a Catholic foster agency, and tell them to do things that are against their conscience. One more time for the quick hit. Screw you, Dana Nessel. And thank you, Bill Donahue, for pointing this out. And thank you, District Court Judge Robert Jonker, for being on our side for a change.
Not for nothing. How does this even come up? First Amendment. It's clear as day. You don't even have to go to law school.
Well, we're going to get into it in a little bit because they couch it under hate speech. You're a hate group, hate speech.
Yeah, but you're still you're so the Bible's a book
yes,
of hate.
The Bible is a book of hate. The Bible's about to go.
But that's my point. Yeah. It's so stupid.
Right.
You don't even have to go to law school. It's a layup. It's a layup.
Right. Right, because the plain language of the law, the judge is basically saying, in this case, Judge Jonker, the plain language of the law is you cannot discriminate against these groups. You can't if they are following the teachings of their faith. That means, and again, homosexuals were not targeted because it was any relationship that is contrary to church teaching. So it is unmarried heterosexual couples and homosexual couples, okay? So there's no targeting involved. It's just they're not going to do anything that violates the teachings of the church and their conscience. And the judge said, yeah, that's exactly right. Get out, Dana Nessel. So that's a quick hit on them.
Love it.
Love it. Joe Campbell coming in from Brooklyn. Joe, how do you like the backdrop, Joe? But Joe, Mike Connellan joined. We have Aldo Alvarez. Artie, Orly, Vinny, a whole bunch of beautiful people out there following the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Sunday nights, 8 o'clock. We're in the breach, and now we're going to hit the meat and potatoes. No, we said we're not going to say meat and potatoes anymore. We're hitting the pasta and meatballs.
There it is. There it is. I had some fusillo tonight. It was awesome.
You didn't save me any.
It's upstairs. Still got a little bit. Got some brajol. Have one brajol, pork brajol. You got to go.
You got the pork brajol.
Got to do it.
After the show, I'll be digging in. So, and I have a feeling after this conversation, I'm going to be hungry.
Okay, we're going to go to the House, sadly, the DNC House. They announced a formal impeachment inquiry of Donald Trump this week. We would be remiss if we did not talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's be clear. It is, there are no articles of impeachment. It is an inquiry. I think that's an important note.
Let's make that, Joe, hammer that point home. This is not an impeachment. This is not an impeachment proceeding. It is, but by the way, I think it's not even a real inquiry until the House votes. See, Republicans are trying to get them to vote. You put your vote on record, all you Democrats in purple and swing districts. You put your vote as to whether or not you want to pursue an inquiry into the impeachment of Donald Trump. See, Pelosi's trying to say impeachment. But in the meantime, it's not impeachment. It's not, because you have to vote. They want to get them on record. But go ahead.
Okay. And like I said, it's important because it's not, what's it called? It's not a formal impeachment. There's no articles of impeachment. And I think a lot of times people kind of lose that with the press because they just throw the term impeachment.
Right.
Anyway, a couple comments, and then we could get into the discussion. I think this is a complete farce. I think it's a slap in the face of the American people. The only offense that Donald Trump has made against these people is he won the election.
Right.
And the Democrats can't accept it.
How dare he?
This is sad. This is sad, if you ask me. And also, not for nothing, and this is my little conspiracy theory, I don't actually think they're going after Donald Trump.
Who are they going after?
They're going after
Joe Biden.
I think they know that this is not going to stick, and they want to get rid of Joe Biden. Even Chris Cuomo this week on CNN said that Joe Biden was involved in a quid pro quo relationship.
They have him on tape. They see this whistleblower nonsense.
That's Chris Cuomo.
That's Chris Cuomo. He's obviously no friend of Donald Trump. But then again, think of it this way. See, this is where the Democrats and the left, they think we're all stupid. We know what they're trying to do. You just hit the nail on the head. This whistleblower nonsense doesn't do anything to Donald Trump. Nothing. It's all nonsense. Just like the Mueller report came out, it fizzled. This is going to fizzle. Who's going to be left very, very battered in all this is Biden on camera saying, I got $1 billion, and until you fire the prosecutor that's investigating my son, I'm getting on a plane and I'm leaving.
And let me give you some...
And Donald Trump is La Cosa Nostra?
Let me give you some facts with the Biden situation. Joe Biden's son got a job with the Ukrainian gas and oil company to the tune of $50,000 a month. It was a $600,000 job.
When we make.
He had, he had no credentials to get that job. None.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. And number two, there was a prosecutor who was going to go after that company. Joe Biden, this is absolute truth.
And on tape and on video.
Did everything he could do to get that prosecutor fired.
And the prosecutor was fired.
So if you don't think that that's at least strange, I don't know what's wrong with you. But take away your Democratic hat.
Right. Just.
I mean, and that happened during Barack Obama's watch.
Right.
That's another thing.
Yeah, but look at what they're doing. They know it's not going to work on Trump, okay? But they want, as we've said numerous times over the past couple of months, they don't want Joe Biden. And when this goes away against Donald Trump, you know what's going to happen? Biden's going to be left there, basically, you know, like holding the bag. And people are going to, and the Democrats then are going to completely turn on him and say, Joe Biden, you need to get out of this race.
Absolutely.
We have you on tape. And you know what? Then they brush off the seat for Elizabeth Warren to sit in with Pete Buttigieg as her number 2. That's exactly what they're going after. That's my prediction, is Buttigieg. I originally thought it was going to be Biden Buttigieg. And then Biden was going to have a very short presidency because they were going to clip him. I know that's conspiracy theory. But they're brushing off the seat for Elizabeth Warren, who's rising in the polls. And with this against Joe Biden, they're going to have Elizabeth Warren as the front runner, and they're hoping that people coalesce around her. Right now, she's the most popular person in the Democratic Party. They think that she could speak enough like a moderate. Don't ask me how anybody can think that, but in their minds, she could speak to the middle of the country. Don't think it's going to work, but this is a ploy to get Biden out of the way.
And it's going to go to the Senate, and I'm going to tell you this. If Joe Biden and his son are subpoenaed by the Senate, they're going to get destroyed. They are going to get embarrassed and destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's just a fact. And that's what I think this is all about. I think this has nothing to do with Donald Trump, because frankly, there is no impeachable evidence. There are no articles of impeachment.
Right. This is all drummed up. Look at James Jones. James, thanks for joining us. We haven't seen you in North Carolina. He says, if you notice the video with Joe Biden bragging about what he did, the audience is laughing. You see, Trump has a phone call with the president of Ukraine. It's overheard, gets taken out of context. It goes through the whole intelligence mill at the White House. It's all hearsay. And Donald Trump has violated his oath of the Constitution. And as Jim pointed out, okay, Biden's bragging about it, and the audience is laughing. I guess it's not that big a deal to extort a foreign leader. To get that leader to do what you want.
Your family.
And to enrich your family. The quid pro quo, the cronyism, and Trump is the one that's under investigation.
They broke Trump's balls when Pence stayed at his hotel in Ireland.
Yeah, right. Big crime. Big crime.
And he said, I think it was Elizabeth Warren blew that whistle. She basically, as if like that was a big deal.
That's everything. But listen, if
he was probably just like, stay in my hotel, it's nice.
Do you know what happened if Donald Trump clipped his toenails? Please. They'd accuse him of doing the same thing that New York wants to do to cats, and they'd try to impeach him over that too. Okay,
you can't be called cats in New York.
Well, you can't declaw cats.
You can't declaw anybody.
Trump can't win, and we're going to repeat it one more time. Trump can't win with these people because Trump gets 4 more years. We pointed out 2 weeks ago he's already got 150 judges nominated and sitting on the federal bench, the circuit court, and the Supreme Court. And in another 4 years, he's going to get another 150. And as I pointed out in the quick hit coming from the Catholic League, when you get judges like Judge Junker, who takes these radical AGs, attorneys general, and tells them, no, you're not doing this. Joe and I say a million times, we need people, good judges, to tell these people no.
And we're not talking about politics. We want judges that just follow the Constitution.
Follow the Constitution.
That's it.
And in this case, as we were talking about,
First Amendment.
Those judges following the Constitution, you know what they're going to do? Because remember something, there's a big push. We're going to talk about a little bit about hate speech, hate groups, hate speech, hate groups. That's just a means by which they're going to try to restrict your constitutional right to speak freely, your right to free speech. And they are deathly afraid that, aside from abortion and all the other stuff, gay marriage, that they are deathly afraid that they're not going to be able to push that hate speech agenda through, because judges are going to say, did you people read the First Amendment to the Constitution? It doesn't say speech that doesn't offend you. It says the right to free speech shall not be abridged. Is that pretty clear?
It's clear as day.
Is it clear as day? No, and that's why the importance of making sure that we get behind Donald Trump. See, we don't have to. We're not the ones that the Democrats are trying to convince. They're trying to convince people who are kind of maybe who don't have their nose in the news, maybe a little bit less informed, not ignorant people, or not stupid people. I'm not saying that, but people who just might not be too informed. And when you see these things, you go, "Wow, Donald Trump really looks like he did something wrong." You know what I mean? And they're not getting the full picture. Those are the people that they're looking to clip off and have vote for, let's say, either Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris, whoever on God's green earth is going to get the nomination to that godforsaken party. But anyway, I mean,
well, it is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, we all know, and this is a sad statement to make, but I would have to agree with it. I do think the press is the enemy of the American people.
Well, have they not shown themselves to be?
Sad. It's sad. It's sad, and frankly, that is a disturbing statement to make, because that's a freedom that we are very unique in having. And it's so abused. It's so off the charts. And that's one very good thing that came out of this presidency. It's been exposed. The fake news is a real deal, and that has to be corrected. We need more integrity. We need more integrity in journalism.
Well, think about it.
It's sad. And that's what this is about, because I got news for you. Fact check anything you want on this. And also, if you disagree, bring it up.
Yeah, we don't put the kibosh on you the way MSNBC and CNN put the kibosh on conservatives. The only time I ever have a conservative there is there's three liberals right next to them, all rolling their eyes like this. When a conservative makes a point that's the truth, makes a point to Rachel Maddow or Chris Cuomo or Chris Maddow, they are the enemy of the people. That doesn't mean that we don't respect the press. That means that we don't respect you as the press. We don't consider you the press, because you're an extension of a particular political party rather than tell the truth. You know this Trump story is a lot of nonsense. You know this whistleblower stuff is nonsense. You knew the Mueller report, the Russia hoax. You knew it was all nonsense. But yet you keep doing it. You kept doing it because you're ideologues. And you don't. That's what you are. You don't care. You don't care.
And you don't care that Joe Biden manipulated his office to empower his son to make $50,000 a month.
Right.
To get a job he had absolutely no qualifications for.
Right.
And then when someone looked into it, he had him fired.
Right.
And you could care less about that. If you are fine with that, I got news for you. I'm not fine with you.
That's right. And you are then our enemy. You've made yourself our enemy. That's what you do. We didn't call you our. You've made yourself our enemy, because what you do when you can't refute the truth, because you can't refute the truth with lies. And that's all you people do, is spew lies about Donald Trump and all conservatives. Okay, you can't refute the truth, so you try to shut it down. All you people that are champions of free speech, you'd have no problem if Google or Facebook dropped the hammer on Joe and me and anybody else out there who's trying to talk the truth. And when we disagree with you, you'd have no problem with us losing our right to free speech, but you'd have a problem with you losing your right to freedom of the press. But you're not the press. The press is supposed to tell the truth. And the only people telling the truth right now are the people in independent social media who are telling the truth. That's why people like us and many others out there are gaining an audience, and you're losing. Jeff Zucker's, he's managing a losing proposition. He should have been fired. He's managing a losing proposition at CNN.
Well, they made a business decision, and they're losing.
Let them live with it.
If I was on the board, I would have had him fired.
Right.
As soon as that Russian thing blew up, I would have been like, Zucker's out.
Right.
Out.
Right.
We're losing money.
Right. But you are absolutely right. There's no way around it. The press in this country is an extension of the Democratic Party. They are, as we called them last week, they are America's Pravda. Okay? So you had the Communist Party in the Soviet Union, one party, Joseph Stalin, Brezhnev, and Pravda was right there, just taking everything that they were saying and feeding it to the people. That's what MSNBC is. That's what the New York Slimes, not my phrase, that's Mark Levin's phrase, the New York Slimes, Washington Post, that's what they all are. That's what they are, an arm of the Democratic Party, and they will crush anybody who disagrees with their party line. You are absolutely right. They are the enemy of the people.
So let's go to the UN. Donald Trump made a speech at the UN at the General Assembly this week. I invite you to listen to it. It's 37 minutes. I listened to it. It was fantastic.
Can I give a couple quick shout-outs? So we got Eddie joining us. Gornai, Eddie, Vinny, James. James had a comment. Oh no, yeah, we addressed that, where the people were laughing at Biden's boast about the prosecutor getting fired. But anyway, Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, 8 o'clock every Sunday night on Facebook Live. Thank you again for joining us. So you said you wanted to go to the UN.
Let's go to the UN. Yes, please. If you get a moment or two, please listen to it. It's very good. The point that I wanted to bring out for this particular segment is Donald Trump's unfailing defense of life. He made a few statements to the General Assembly, and frankly, I have never heard anyone make statements like this. That goes across.
Never heard George Bush say anything like that. And I never heard John McCain say anything like that.
I want to read them to you, and then we could just get into it, because I think they were fantastic. I'll just read 3. Never tire of defending innocent life. That's number 1. He said, we are aware that many United Nations projects have attempted to assert a global right to taxpayer-funded abortion on demand, right up until the moment of delivery, he said. Global bureaucrats have absolutely no business attacking the sovereignty of a nation that wish to protect innocent life. Like many nations here today, we in America believe that every child, born and unborn, is a sacred gift from God. Then he went on to say, too often people in positions of power preach diversity while silencing and shunning or censoring the faithful. Thank you.
I want all the never Trumpers, all the Catholic never Trumpers, all those Catholics who say, "Oh, I don't like Trump. I don't like Trump." You explain to me how this guy is someone that I'm not supposed to vote for, Joe's not supposed to vote for, if you value life and are seeking the abolition of abortion in this country. How after going up in front of all the gangsters, thugs, mafiosi, because that's what a lot of these third world dictators are, all right? That's all they are. They're gangs. He goes up there and he says, we value life. And his presidency has shown that he values life and he follows through it. He fought for the Mexico City policy.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Tell everyone a little bit about that briefly.
I don't know all the details, but the bottom line is the funding of abortion in through non-governmental organizations, okay, NGOs. And Donald Trump put the kibosh on that.
So basically what you're doing to some degree is you could put like a hook to me helping you. That's my understanding.
Well, Hillary Clinton was the perfect example of that. She wanted to stop sending foreign aid to the Philippines until the Philippines liberalized their abortion laws. Okay, I don't think the Philippines caved. God bless them.
One of the most Catholic countries in the world.
Right. So this is what I see. Here's the hypocrisy. Let's point out for the folks out there just a little bit of hypocrisy. I've heard my whole life, who are we to impose our American values on other countries? Well, you want to oppose abortion on them. Okay, Donald Trump, and there's one thing I don't like about him. He's got Rick Grinnell. Okay, I don't know if Grinnell's now ambassador to the United Nations or ambassador to Germany. So Rick Grinnell's going overseas trying to get countries to overturn their sodomy laws. Leave them alone. They don't want American values that involve abortion or sodomy or a lot of other things, okay? Leave them alone. We're not supposed to, according to your standard in my lifetime. I'm 50. Joe's near 50. Bottom line is, in my lifetime, we can't impose our will on other countries. Then leave the Philippines alone. Leave Poland alone. Leave Hungary alone. Leave Austria alone. Leave them alone. In other words, don't threaten to withhold funds from them because they don't promote abortion. And Donald Trump went right up in front of the UN is full of the worst people in the world. You ever see who sits on their Human Rights Commission? Cuba. You know, Cuba. I think the Sudan is on the Human Rights Commission. These are gangsters. These are thugs. And Trump goes up there and says, we value life. I'm not supposed to vote for him.
And
You're
frankly,
not supposed to vote for him?
This is a message to the Catholics out there. Most pro-life president since Roe v. Wade.
Absolutely.
Hands down. By the way, an abortion is an intrinsic evil.
That's right.
You can't vote for anyone. If you are practicing Catholic, you cannot vote for someone who supports abortion. That's an intrinsic evil.
That's right. That means intrinsic, by the way, just to explain it a little bit further, means it is not acceptable under any circumstances because it objectively is the termination of an innocent human life. And we all in this country, it's one of the reasons why we don't have unity in this country, okay? Because of abortion and the rest of the cultural agenda, all right, and all the moral issues that the left is going to defend as their sacred cows, okay? They have certain sacred cows. I think you're going to talk a little bit about paganism, sure. Neo-paganism. Well, when we talk about neo-paganism, human sacrifice, which abortion is, okay, is part and parcel of this neo-pagan culture that the left is trying to impose on us. Remembering, too, that going back to paganism in their mind, if we could just have paganism back, we can undo this 2,000 years of this Christian terror. That's what they say, okay? And part of that is abortion. And Donald Trump, to his credit, has followed through on all his promises.
Absolutely. I mean, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves from it. That goes for the Catholic Church. They don't give him the credit that's due.
Right. And
they should give him more for that. 2,500 babies are aborted a day. In America.
Right.
Let that sink in.
You want to talk to me about the border?
2,500 children are aborted a day.
Right. They want to talk to you about trees. They want to talk about trees, Joe.
Putting straws in Coca-Cola.
Declawing cats.
Declawing cats.
Goes back to declaw. The name of this show should be Declawing Cats. Everything emanates from declawing cats. This is the party who says it's immoral to declaw a cat, but then has a whole list of things where they will cut your throat. Old, young, anywhere in the middle. These are leftist thugs. And Joe started this segment talking about Donald Trump going up right in front of a bunch of leftist thugs, say, stop telling us what to do. We value life, and we're not going to impose abortion or put that string on any foreign aid when it comes to other countries and their protection of human life. So God, I know this is going to piss off the left. God bless Donald Trump.
There it is. So since we're on the UN, we're going to stay on the UN. And this is an interesting
one. Do we
one.
have to stay with them? All right, we have to stay with them.
Frontline.
Let's give a shout out. Jonathan Ross just joined, and Jonathan loves the backdrop.
Love it, baby.
We love it, baby. Jonathan Ross up in Toronto. He streams our show on HolyFaith Media over on YouTube, and he makes our show look real pretty after we get done on Facebook Live. So a big thank you to Jonathan Ross. Joe Campo saying another great show. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for your support, and everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for your support, and you're helping our show grow, and we're really making strides. So we have to go back to the United Nations because Joe Resinello says we have to go back to the United Nations.
I think you'll find this to be interesting. More than 500 scientists and professionals in climate and related fields have sent a European climate declaration to the Secretary General of the UN asking for an open debate on climate change. Now, these are scientists.
I love this story.
This is not George Clooney.
Right.
This is scientists.
Is it that little actress, the Swedish actress? Greta Thunberg!
Oh, Lord.
How dare you? We'll get into her in a second.
But anyway,
there you go off on her.
More than 500. Basically, what they're saying is they note the importance of not rushing in to enormous expenses before ascertaining all the facts. This is also what they said.
Mm-hmm.
Get this. These are over 500 scientists. There is no statistical evidence that global warming is intensifying hurricanes, floods, droughts, or making them more frequent. And in looking into it, we will squander trillions of dollars.
Right.
They also go on to say, we urge you to follow a climate policy based on sound science, realistic economics, and genuine concern for those harmed by costly but unnecessary attempts at mitigation. Get this.
Listen to this language. These guys are great.
There is no climate emergency. Therefore, there is no cause for panic or alarm.
Did you hear that, Senator Sanders? It is not an existential threat. And when life is still going to exist on this planet, in 10 years, you'll probably be dead because you're old and crusty. I don't wish it on you, but you probably won't be here in 10 years. But we will. And we'll be driving fossil fuel-driven vehicles, okay? And we don't care what you have to say. You get that?
Scientists.
Unnecessary. You heard the language that they use that Joe was pointing out? Unnecessary, costly. But why, Joe? Remember something. Every time climate scientists who actually truly study these things, doing real science, okay, when they make their voices known, because these are people who are not evidently tied in to any kind of funding. So them towing the party line isn't necessary for them because they want to make sure that they get their funding for whatever science they're doing. These are probably independent scientists, okay, who have looked at this and came up with this report, and they sent it to the UN. And what they're saying is, stop scaring people. In other words, there is, when they talk, I was watching a scientist the other day on YouTube talking about CO2, how we need CO2. We're actually at a dangerously low level of CO2 and all these things. But my larger point is I'm not going to debate climate science. Joe is not going to debate climate science. We want those who challenge these 500 scientists and others like them to go into an open debate.
And they'll never
do that. Al Gore, you know what he does? I don't debate deniers. That's what he said. He's likening a scientist who questions Al Gore's view of climate change to a Nazi, because that's what they do when they use words like deniers. In other words, you're a Holocaust denier or you're a climate denier. You see, remember something, people. We're all for debate. And we know that you're intelligent. We hope you think that we're intelligent. And part of our intelligence is recognizing this very simple fact. The person who who opens his mouth the loudest but refuses to debate and defend their position generally is a liar. They're lying because they know they cannot defend their position. Nobody's going to defend these debate these 500 sides. You think Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna debate? Like you think Al Gore's going to debate them? You think little Greta Thunberg, whatever her name is, and she's an actress. We'll get into her in a bit. She's an actress feeding lies. You think she's going to debate anybody? You think any of these climatologists who are bought and paid for by their funding and their departments at the university, you think that they're going to debate these guys? No, because you know what happens when they debate them? They lose. And they know they're going to lose. And they know they have this little thing here called the internet so that people could actually watch that debate and their minds will be changed. And that's what they don't want. They want to sell us this bill of goods by telling us, oh, we're all going to die in 10 years.
Well, that kind of leads us to like a question which I kind of want to explore a little bit. Is have these activists who discuss climate change. Now, I'm not saying that the environment, we could do better on certain things. Absolutely. Recycling is a good thing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Being responsible stewards.
Being responsible stewards to the environment. Sure. I'm all for.
Absolutely.
But regarding some of these climate change activists, is this sort of like a new religion? Because clearly they've pushed away religion out of their like little world, even personally, to be honest with you.
This is a great topic to talk about.
Is this a rebranding of paganism in a sense, worshiping the earth? Because there is a need in humanity to have a God. I mean, this goes before Christ.
Right,
you're talking about like the Mayans. You're talking about ancient religions.
They had a rudimentary concept of God.
The Greeks.
All right, but they didn't quite know who God was. Okay. Now again, you get into the whole idea. Well, God revealed Himself to them in incremental ways, but obviously the Jews were the chosen people who He actually revealed Himself to. But the bottom line is, they all developed their religion because, like Joe said, the need for God is because there is a God. Okay, and they had again a primitive and pagan view of what that God is. They anthropomorphized God. They made Him look like, in the Greek case, they made Him, and the Romans, they looked like us. You know what I mean? And they governed everything, and they fought against one another. The Mayans, the Aztecs. Okay, but one of the gods that the Romans had was the god Gaia, and Gaia was the Earth Mother.
The Earth.
And when you look at it, let's say pagan religion, all right. This, like the question Joe's asking, is this a religious movement? And the answer is yes.
Yeah, whether they realize it or not, they've almost like pushed God out of their life, by the way. And this is not me being judgmental. Listen, you could say you worship God. It's how you act. It's the type of policies that you promote.
Right.
To be truthful with you, the proof's in the pudding. You could say, oh, there's a God, but if you're killing babies, and you're
then we don't know what kind of God you believe in.
I don't know what kind of God you believe in. No, I'm sorry, but at the end of the day, it's like this has become their God. Sadly, also politics has become people's gods as well. It's tribal.
But it doesn't.
But that's another discussion for another day. But I actually do think this is a rebranding of paganism.
Right. Well, like you just said, but remember something. Nietzsche made this very clear. Okay. Nietzsche asked in I forgot which one, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, or one of them, where he said, he tells the story, we have killed God. Okay. But now we have to replace God. Are we now gods because we killed God? That's exactly what these people are doing. And Nietzsche actually, for the most part, predicted it. Okay. He kind of welcomed the destruction of organized religion, but he predicted that this would happen. You're still, like Joe said in the beginning, have a religious impulse. Now your religious impulse is, again, we'll leave aside Marxism. We'll just talk about their worship of the earth. They have their priests, okay? They have their prophets, Al Gore, Leonardo DiCaprio, okay? All these people, these are all prophets of their neo-pagan religion. Now, I'm sure you saw this week. I don't know if you all saw it. Now we have pagan confession. Did you see that?
No.
You didn't see this? NBC... This is no joke, Joe. I'm not joking. I know I like to make you laugh, okay? But this is not a joke. NBC is doing climate confessions so that you could go online anonymously and you can confess to environmental crime. So I eat steak 5 times a week and I love it. I think I got that one exactly verbatim. I eat steak 5 times a week and I love it. So now you actually have sacramental confession in this neo-pagan environmental Mother Earth Gaia worshiping religion that they're. It's just no joke.
And let's bring
confession to
NBC
back
to it. I mean, we have 500 plus scientists who are basically saying that there is absolutely no correlation between the intensification of hurricanes, floods, and droughts to climate change. Over 500 scientists. Everyone always points to science. Well, I'm pointing to science.
Right.
Why aren't they given their day in court at the UN?
Because they're loose.
Right.
Because they're loose.
And that's all I have to say about it. Frankly, that's all I have to say about it. I'm more interested in what a scientist has to say than I am what George Clooney has to say.
We don't care.
I'm sorry. I don't care what George Clooney
And you know what? I don't blame George Clooney if he said, well, Joe and Joe, I don't care what you say. Fine. George, that's fine. We're not debating you about climate. We want the scientists who claim that the Earth is coming to an end in 10 years, who are informing people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg and Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke. We want those scientists to debate these scientists. I'm not arguing with you, George Clooney, or Leonardo DiCaprio, or Al Gore, okay? But you seem to say it's settled science. Joe and I say it's not settled science. Now we're going to go get, like we used to do when we were kids, I'm going to go get my big brother to come and kick your ass. Well, I'm going to go get the 500 scientists who are the big brother to go up against your scientists who are your big brothers and let them have a public and open debate on this issue. Because when you're at the end of the day, what is this about, Joe? If you're going to spend propose to spend trillions of dollars of our money for a Green New Deal to perpetrate a hoax, no. You're going to need to have a debate first before you get to do that.
Let me read that again. This is from the scientists to the UN. We urge you to follow a climate policy based on sound science, realistic economics, and genuine concern for those harmed by costly but unnecessary attempts at mitigation.
And who's going to be harmed, Joe?
The poor.
Okay. Well, and us. And us. We're toast. They've said flat out, if they get their way, in other words, they're going to raise taxes on us all. In other words, we're going to have carbon taxes on us. They want, when they talk about taking away guns, they also want to take away our cars. Okay, they want us to stop heating our homes with fossil fuels. They want us all to get solar panels. Okay, they expect us all to bear the cost, and their whole thing is, well, we bear the cost. Well, you're worth $250 million, or you're worth $500 million. An extra $1 million here or $2 million here for you means nothing. But the increased cost for people like us who get up and go to work every day, unlike you, George Clooney and Leonardo DiCaprio, okay? Because don't tell me acting's real work. And this comes from a dues-paying member of the Screen Actors Guild. Don't tell me acting is hard work, because it's not, okay? We work. We can't afford this. And we don't want to let you tell us that we're going to have to pay it. That's the fight. So, again, there needs to be a debate.
I agree.
Has to be a debate. And until there's any kind of real debate,
we'll never get it. Well, and by the way, look the story up. I'm not making it up.
That's right.
I don't make anything up.
It's all truth here. It's all truth here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello every Sunday night, 8 o'clock on Facebook Live with a growing audience and more influence. And we have a great, and Gornay made a good point. Gornay's checked it. He said, thank you. Sound reasoning makes sense to address in the environment and climate in that way. Right, Gornay, you know what that way is? In a sane way. That's what scientists do. They just do science. They don't make political recommendations. They just do science.
I'm interested in what they have to say.
Yeah, and by the way, Gornay said he heard about the climate. You got to check that out. I do want to emphasize that before we move on. Everybody, go check out the climate confession. So when Joe made the original point about, is this a religion? You now have priests, okay? You have prophets, and now you have God, which is the earth. So you have to have God for a religion. And then you have the earth. And now you have confession, where you could go and relieve yourself. Oh, and by the way, you do have to make, I think they got this from the Catholic Church. I'm not sure. You have to make a firm purpose of amendment. So when you say, I eat steak 5 days, yeah, well, if I eat steak 5 days a week, all right, they'll say, thank you for your confession. Now you have to promise not to do it again.
This sounds like Festivus.
Do
they have a poll? Do they have a Festivus poll? Air your grievances, day one.
No, but it truly is. I don't want to. Let's not be dismissive. I don't want to call it insane, because, like Joe said, people have religious impulses, but those impulses at times are misdirected. okay? And they're based on false assumptions, okay? So I don't want to be cruel. I'm not going to call them insane. I'm just going to say they're in a very, very dark place, okay? And they need to raise their consciousness and get rid of some of these ridiculous notions.
Let's go to the president's cabinet. Some interesting things came out of there this week that I wanted to bring up. First, with Dr. Ben Carson. He is the Housing and Urban Development Secretary. He defends a policy allowing federally funded women's shelters to bar transgender men from sleeping and showering among battered women.
That makes perfect
sense to me. Well, he got a lot of pushback. Just to go on the record, this is a reversal of Barack Obama's policy.
So Obama cares about women, So remember that as Joe's reading.
So basically, Barack Obama allowed transgender men to sleep in shelters with
and
women.
Shower, and in the article too, and share showers with women. Okay, so let's be clear. They're naked in the shower.
I mean, does
so
this
are the
even
women.
have to be discussed?
Shouldn't be discussed.
I mean, for crying out loud, battered women no less.
Right.
Have they been through enough?
Right.
And now you have to take a shower with a transgender man because the government is trying to be politically correct.
Exactly.
This is where they've gone completely loony. These people are Looney Tunes. They're Looney Tunes.
Right.
And this is complete nonsense.
We are the feminists, Joe.
Well, by the way,
go ahead.
Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren condemned Ben Carson.
Of course.
By the way, do you think that they're going to be in that shelter?
No.
Do you think Kamala Harris is going to shower in a group shower with a transgender man? Do you think Elizabeth Warren's kid or niece, I don't know if she has kids, but like someone close to her, she's going to permit that?
Right.
This is just where they've gone completely
Joe,
politically
remember
correct.
something.
It's just ridiculous.
But Joe, these are battered women. You see, we're all supposed to fall over backwards, and I'm all for it. Battered women, I'll do anything I could do to help. Okay, I don't know what I can do, but if I was asked by a battered woman, can you help? Yes, I want to help you. We're supposed to be helping these people. How is it possible you're helping them because a disordered man is going into the shelter and you think the law should let him go into the same shower with this woman?
And there have been instances where men actually who are not transgender, who pretend to be, have gone into shelters and actually have violated women.
Right.
That happened in 2012 in Toronto. The gentleman's name was Christopher Hambrook, and he assaulted multiple women.
Right.
Pretending.
What about that? What about that, Kamala? What about that, Senator Warren? What about those women? No rights for them? No rights?
All just because we want to be politically correct.
Right. Right.
Where all common sense and rational thinking thrown out the window.
That's right. It doesn't. Not with this subject. Rationality, reason, none of it applies when it comes to transgenderism. And in this particular case, now we say all the time, we know what they think of jamokes like us. Okay, are they? But what the enraging part about this story? Again, I'm going to say it one more time. Battered women. This is serious, man. You're letting men who are disordered into that shelter, into that shower, sleeping next to these women. You got the case of this guy in Toronto saying, I think the exact quote was, we could go down to the women's shelter, pretend we're women, go in there and we could do whatever we want. And Kamala Harris is going to condemn Ben Carson.
You think
Ben Carson,
Barack Obama's daughters are going to be permitted to sleep in that shelter?
Well, let's assume they wouldn't have to, but you think
Barack
Obama's daughters are ever going to be in a place where they're alone with a so-called transgender man?
Michelle Obama is going to permit that? Absolutely this is the laughable thing about this,
right.
Actually. It's okay for you in a public toilet in Central Park, but not for my kid.
Right. Well, isn't that the way the cosmopolitan elites work?
Oh, that's a given.
Right. That's
a given.
That's the way it works.
Socialism, by the way. It never touches them. You know who it touches? You
all
and
of
me.
us.
It doesn't touch any of them.
That's
They're
right.
above it. When are people going to get that through your head? Socialism is not for the regular man.
Right.
It suits the elite. And everyone else gets pushed down, and it's very difficult to climb up.
That's right.
That's a fact.
Right.
That is a fact. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and I'll tell you this, under a socialism a socialistic regime, there is no way I would have accomplished what I was able to accomplish. That is a fact. That is a fact. If you go to Europe, if your father was a milkman, most likely that is exactly what you will be. Only people, the elite, the very, very, very intelligent, or the very, very, very rich climb out.
Right.
That's it.
That is the gospel truth right there. When we talk about telling the truth on this show, notice they are not on your side.
And if you are for that, I got news for you. This country is about coming here and breaking your back to make it happen. That's what my family did. My grandfather worked in a factory in Newark. My father cut hair. 10 hours a day, standing up.
That's what it's all about.
And educated 2 kids doing it.
Right, but I would tell any of those people that would support them, Joe, any of the working men that support them, when you go to work and they tell you from each according to their ability and to each according to his need, and you're breaking your ass working on that loading dock or working down at at Port Newark or working on construction, whatever the case may be, and you see the slackers over in the corner, okay, and you know that they're getting paid the same amount as you because it's from each according to his ability and to each according to his need. That's socialism. That's Marxism. What are you going to say then? You know what you're going to say? I don't want to get paid the same as those guys. Those guys are slackers. That's what you're going to say. You know what you are then? You're a capitalist. You're a capitalist. Okay?
And like, getting back to this particular story about, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, it doesn't apply to them.
No.
It does not. That's kind of how we got on this subject. It does not apply to them, and it never will. It applies to us. And that's why I will never support it, ever. Never, and neither should you. Let's go to another cabinet story this week. This one's interesting as well. It's Betsy DeVos. She's the education secretary. She visited various schools because it's back to school week. Basically, in a lot of places, it's a 2019 back to school tour. One of the schools that she visited was an elementary school that happened to be a Catholic school.
I'm sorry, Joe. This story has the vein popping out of my head. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me just give you. The school had what was called a self-mutilation policy, and I'm going to read you the policy.
Please listen to this.
And then we're going to talk about it. So basically, this is what the school says. Now, this is a private school. It says, if a student undergoes or contemplates undergoing a sex change procedure, the student will no longer be able to attend the school, as doing so would violate the agreement parents make with the school to not act in opposition of Catholic teaching. Now, NBC News got wind of this story, and this is what they reported on. This is why they're the enemy of the people. They basically says, Betsy DeVos visits school with explicit anti-transgender policy. It's not anti-transgender policy. It's a private school. They're entitled to the policy. That's why you pay money. Just like a yeshiva. You pay money if you're Jewish to what? Get the teachings of the Jewish religion. Well, if you're Catholic, self-mutilation is a sin.
Right.
So therefore, you're entitled to this. This is not a public school. So this is what they report. Once again, I didn't go to law school. This is perfectly within the constitutional rights of this school.
Right. Right. And it gets back to everything that we talk about, why we need good judges and everything else, to stop people like this. Because if it was up to these people, number one, let's just make clear for the audience. By the way, anything that a Ben Carson, a Betsy DeVos, a Mike Pompeo, anybody in this administration, when the left, because it's not, I was about to say when they do something wrong, it's not that they do anything wrong. When the left tells you they've done something wrong and they committed one of those sins, like the left.
You see, that's your problem right there, because there is no sin. Well, that's another discussion.
Unless you eat steak 5 times a week and you declaw cats. If you eat steak 5 times a week and you declaw cats, you are a sinner and you're going to pagan hell. Okay? That's where you're going. All right, so let's get that straight. But remember, their solution is always the same when it comes to Trump administration officials who express support for hate groups like the Catholic Church. Is they need to be fired or they need to resign. That's, again, I'm going to go back to a phrase I used earlier in the show when Judge Jonker in Michigan read the Riot Act to Attorney General Nessel in Michigan, which is screw you. I'm not going to give you an intellectual argument about why Betsy DeVos or Ben Carson or anybody else should not resign or be forced or fired by Donald Trump. Screw you. That's the only answer you get. I am in full support of Betsy DeVos. I am in full support of Dr. Ben Carson. I voted for Trump, and those are the people he put in those positions. So one more time, screw you.
And also, by the way, in public school in America right now, a freshman girl who is usually about 14 years old could potentially be forced to take a shower with an 18-year-old boy who thinks he's a girl.
Hear that, all you fathers out there?
Do you have a problem with that? I do.
Right.
I do.
The left doesn't have a problem with that.
And once again, Barack Obama's kids aren't.
They're not going to be in that mixed shower.
And if they did, there'll be two Secret Service agents standing in the shower.
Right, but your daughter doesn't get it. That's right.
So this is my point. Logic has become, it's extinct. It's extinct.
It reminds you that Steely Dan album is called, the title of it is Pretzel Logic. That's what it is, which means there is no logic. Pretzel logic is when I have a view towards a particular issue or a particular occurrence that makes me feel good right now, and I know that I'm right. Purely emotional argument. They don't make any logical sense. They don't think in a linear way. It's all just twisted pretzel logic. That's all it is. A Catholic school has, or any other Catholic organization,
other private school,
and any other private school, right?
It could be a yeshiva. It could be a Muslim school.
That's right. You sign a piece of paper. You sign a piece of paper both when you get hired there. So that's for all the teachers, all right, and the gay music directors when they want to make a beat because they went out and they got married to a guy, okay. And the church and the institution said, "Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to leave." You signed the clause that says you'll live a life that upholds the teachings of the Catholic Church.
Now, why is that? Because you're modeling a life to young people,
right?
That's why parents pay. I send my daughter to Catholic school because I want to form her, not only educate her. I want to form her in the teachings and in the virtues that the Catholic Church instills in people.
Right.
That's why, to me, it's worth the money.
Right.
And that's why we live in a free country. That's why in the First Amendment, it says we have religious liberty. And I am entitled to it. And I'm taking advantage of it. Why should NBC have a beef with me? Well, I don't care what you do, by the way. It's your business what you do with your kid. And I'm not going to ever tell you what to do. But you have no right to impose your values on me. And I pay taxes too.
Right.
But I guess my opinion doesn't count.
Not in this day and age, Joe. Not in this day and age. And Joe's exactly right. Listen, you guys got all you lefties out there, you got all sorts of private schools. You could teach all the radicalism you want, LGBT, rainbow flags, equality flags all over the place, abortion on the man. Go tell it to your daughters. Go tell it to your sons. Go let the so-called transgender male who thinks he's a girl go into the shower with your daughters, okay? Leave our kids alone. And here's another thing. Leave our church alone. Joe and I, if anything else, we are trying to open our mouths to fight for the rights of the Catholic Church in America, which has been diminished over the last 50 years, okay? And there's a lot of reasons for that. Get your filthy freaking hands off our church, and particularly our education, Catholic schools. We hire who we want. We impose the rules that we want, and people voluntarily agree to those rules, both parents, students, and teachers. If you don't like it, go teach somewhere else. But the Catholic answer is no. And Betsy DeVos going there didn't do anything wrong because, like you mentioned a month ago, you want to see Catholic education in America, go down to St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, where 90% of the students are African American and Hispanic, and from the city of Newark, where 100% graduate, and 99% of those kids go on to college.
Most of them are getting scholarship.
Right. If you want to see Catholic education.
And talk to their parents who come from East Orange and Irvington.
That's right. You think
who are black and Hispanic and thanking God that their kid gets to go there and someone's footing the bill for them.
That's right. And you know what St. Benedict's doesn't do? Doesn't teach any of those boys that they can be girls. Doesn't do that. Doesn't teach any of them that that you're born gay. They don't do that. They teach Catholic teaching, and those kids, those boys, become successful. That's what happens. They become equipped for life, okay, because of St. Benedict's Prep.
Taken from the same pool that the Newark Public School has, and they graduate 3 out of 10 kids.
That's right. 3 out of 10 kids. St. Benedict's Prep does it for half the cost and graduates 100% of the kids. Next time you lefties want to attack Catholic education, I suggest you watch a documentary that Joe pointed out called The Rule.
Look it up.
Go look it up. You don't want to know why you don't want to watch it? Because you know Catholic education crushes public education. Crushes it. The worst Catholic school is 10 times better than your best public school.
And to be honest with you, they do it cheaper.
That's right.
They do it cheaper. And that's a fact. If you look at per student, what it costs to educate a kid in a decent school system versus what a Catholic education costs, they do it cheaper, they do it better.
Much better.
Newark, in 2000, we covered this in another show, I'll bring it up again. 2007, it cost, this is 2007, that's 12 years ago, it cost $24,000 to educate a kid in Newark. They have a 3 out of 10 kids graduate. St. Benedict's, the cost of it's about $10,000 per student. And most of the kids that come from poor areas, they're getting scholarship money. And they graduate their kids. They teach them how to live basically good lives in many respects. And these kids become successful.
That's right. You know why? Because they don't teach them transgender studies or feminist studies, and all these other studies. They get a classic Catholic education. There's
discipline.
Joe, what's an essential reason why these kids are successful? Because it's being run by the church, and I guess that's the Benedictines. I mean, I would assume.
Yeah,
okay, so they're Benedictines. Okay, guess what they're doing? They're imposing rules and discipline on these kids, and these kids respond to it because they're usually coming from places of chaos. They're coming into this loving environment, yes, where there's rules and there's discipline, and they come out men. Well, they come out men. I'll tell you a story
about Father Benedict. What's it called? St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. This is a true story. A friend of mine, Frank Carazano, is driving in Newark. A couple kids hit his truck with a snowball. He saw that they had a St. Benedict sweater on. So they had words outside, the window. So, and he got out of the car, whatever, they ran away. So he's like, I'll get you. He went to the school and went to it's Brother Edwin. He's the, Father Edwin. He's the principal. He's been there for years. Went in, told them these kids, you know what he did? He said, you come with me. He went into every classroom and found the kids, pulled them out of the class, sat them down, and made them apologize. See, that is what I want for my kids.
Right.
I want a principal who's in his grill. I don't want a guy who thinks he's a girl showering with my daughter.
Right.
And I'm not paying taxes for that.
Well, that was the original part of your conversation by bringing up Betsy DeVos. Her sin, again, we're all sinners in the pagan religion. All right, because that's kind of like one of the themes of this show is pagan idolatry and pagan religion. We're all sinners. Their sin was not that they bothered to mention this is the 2,000-year teaching of the Catholic Church. Okay, when it comes to many of these issues, obviously, church teaching applies to transgenderism, even though transgenderism wasn't something the church was commenting on in the 1st century AD, okay? But it's part of an overall teaching on sexual morality, and that's what it is, and they present that, like you said, the way the Muslims present it to their kids and the Jews presented to their kids in the schools. But this, by NBC, who's one of the prophets of neo-paganism, they say that, it's anti-trans policy. Okay, that's what it is. It's anti-LGBT policy. Not that it's Catholic, 2,000-year Catholic teaching. Okay, it's anti-trans. Again, getting into you're about to get into a segment about hate speech,
and we don't hate these kids. I'll solve the problem in 1 second. First of all, there's not many kids that are transgender kids in schools. But say you have one, and I'm the principal. I'm going to solve your problem right now with one decision, son. You can use the bathroom in the nurse's office.
That's in a public school.
Public school. That's how I would address it if I was the principal. I respect them, and I would absolutely guarantee that no one was going to hurt him. And if they did, I would absolutely guarantee that those people who did would get into trouble. I would go out of my way to protect the kid.
Right.
But when it comes to the bathroom, if you feel uncomfortable going into the bathroom with guys, you want to go with girls, well, you can't do that, my friend. You could use the nurse's bathroom. Right. You could change for gym in the nurse's bathroom. And There we go.
Here's a compromise.
Problem solved.
But you just meant
problem solved.
But what you did was you just came up with a compromise. I told you about my experiences over the last month. I had to deal with this agenda right in my face, me and my wife. There is no compromise. They're not compromising with you. They say, well, it's still a stigma. You're sending the poor transgender kid into the nurse's office. Well, look, I didn't make the kid transgender, all right? And I think a lot of it is just a lot of pseudoscience, okay? That's really all it is, pseudopsychology. The kid needs help. Okay, that's obvious. And we want to help that young man or that young woman, okay? But in the meantime, no, we're not uprooting our lives, all right, and to accommodate all this. And it's all political anyway. It's all political. It's political indoctrination and intimidation. It's cultural indoctrination and intimidation. That's all it is. They're trying to ram it all down our throats. So that's my point in saying you brought up or made a very good proposal for a compromise. The kid goes in the nurse's office.
That's all.
Okay, and goes in the bathroom in there. Every nurse's office has a bathroom, and that's where the kid goes. That is unacceptable to them. Just like it's unacceptable for Ben Carson to talk about transvestites in a battered woman's shelter, and it's unacceptable for Betsy DeVos to go to Harrisburg Elementary School, which is a Catholic high school. It's unacceptable. Remember, I'm going to go back to it a million times. Dr. Zhivago. The Bolshevik looks at Zhivago, who disagrees with the revolution, and says, adapt yourself. That's all this is about. Adapt yourself.
Let's go one. You're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. We got one more segment. I think this is interesting. This comes from the Ways and Means Committee. There was a statement by Richard Neal from Massachusetts. I'm going to read you the statement, then we'll have a good discussion, I think. He basically stated this week, our tax code is no place for hate groups to propagate white supremacy, anti-Semitism, and hatred for the LGBTQ community. I agree with that, by the way. He basically goes on to say, among others, do not deserve a government subsidy through tax exemption. Hate is not charitable. Once again, I agree, but what is he basically answering?
What is hate? That's the question.
Basically, what he's doing is he said the committee went on to state that 60 alleged hate groups, most of which are conservative and religious groups, should be stripped of tax-exempt status. Why? Because they basically say that marriage is one man and one woman. So basically what they're saying is the Bible is a book of hate. Mm-hmm. Basically what they're saying is if you are a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim and believe that marriage is one man and one woman, your organization, your church, your nonprofit should be stripped of the tax-exempt status that is given to it by the government. By the way, those groups are doing tremendous good in the United States of America, and they'll cut off their nose to spite their face because of their political agenda. Mm-hmm. And he's directing it directly at the Catholic Church.
Absolutely.
Directly.
Target number one, and that is the Catholic Church.
In the same bucket with anti-Semites and white supremacists. Why? What is our sin? We say marriage is between one man and one woman. That's our sin.
That makes you, when you recognize the natural law, when you recognize God's plan for the family and for sexuality as being a married couple between a marriage of one man, one woman, and children, you have now officially become, in the eyes of, what's his name? Richard Neal, Democrat from Massachusetts, the Anti-Defamation League, the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ACLU. You congratulate yourself. You are now a hater, according to them.
And what else is he doing? He's weaponizing the IRS.
Right.
He's weaponizing the IRS to come after you. Why? Because you believe that marriage is between one man and one woman. Mm-hmm. Your opinion, your belief is not valid. You're a hater. You're a knuckle-dragging, deplorable human being, right, because you committed the sin of believing that marriage is between one man and one woman.
Right.
Something that has been believed for centuries.
And you're a sinner in the neo-pagan religion, in the neo-pagan church, all right, of whatever you want to call it, Gaia, Earth Mother, because it doesn't have to do with climate change. It has to do with gender ideology. Has to do with homosexuality, has to do with gay marriage, Has to do with using 150 different pronouns. You're a sinner. You're a sinner. And if you don't repent, listen, what is their biggest criticism of Islam? Their biggest criticism of Islam is a religion that says, or in their history, convert or die. Don't criticize Muslims. You people do the same thing. We need to convert to your pagan religion, your neo-pagan religion, your environmentalism, your LGBT agenda, all of it, your abortion, your human sacrifice agenda. We have to bow down at that altar and confess our sins and repent of those sins. And if we don't, you'll cost us our lives. You'll either cut our throat
or cost us our jobs.
And in which case, when you have a family, you cost me my job, you cost me a lot my life. And they know that, by the way. That's the way they instill fear. Remember, they learned something from history. The martyrs were killed. Every depiction of Felicity and Perpetua, who are two of my favorite martyrs, when I know this kind of favorite martyrs, every depiction of them, they're holding each other smiling as they're about to be martyred. Okay? Every single one. In other words, because they knew that they were dying for the truth. They will do the same thing to you. Okay? And the problem is you won't be smiling because they won't cut your throat. What they'll do is they'll take away your ability to put food on the table when you're like Joe and you got 3 kids, okay, and a wife. In other words, they do it. You want to talk about real fear? See if you wake up in the morning and there's no work for you and there's no money in the bank and you got to put food on that table. But they know this. They know that instills fear in people. I'm scared to death of that. I'm scared to death of not being able to put food on the table. I've been working since I trust in God. But Joe, it is a legit, given these people and the way they operate, it is a legitimate fear. I've been working since I'm 7 years old. These people would cost me, they would cost me my job in a second. So my point is this: we've covered in this show, okay, neo-paganism. We have let's recap. We have the worship of the earth. Okay, the earth is the new God. I think that idiot Deepak Chopra, what does he say? That the universe is God and God is the universe. That's the same principle. The earth is God. The earth is deserving of our worship. So they got their God, they got their prophets like Al Gore and Leonardo DiCaprio, they got their priests, they have their sacraments, of course, because remember, some tied into environmentalism, I think we covered it a week ago, is abortion. Abortion, population control. Too many people, and we're all going to die. If we don't enforce abortion on people in third world countries, little black babies and little brown babies, who's the racist, you lefties? So they have an overall systematic religion. And now we found out through NBC, they have confession also. So, Joe, we could go to confession.
Oh, please.
I went to confession yesterday. I confessed to the real God. You can't even
make this stuff up. It's actually, like I said, I mean, listen, you vote for who you want to vote for. But you should really look into some of these things. That's what this show's all about. We lay it out for you. We lay it out for you. And listen, Donald Trump, I don't worship Donald Trump. He's not perfect. But a lot of these things are just straight up and down loony. They're just straight up and down loony.
How do you still, let me ask you this, in our American system, when you have lunacy in the culture, which leads to insanity in our politics, let's say in the Congress and everything that's going on right now with the Democrats, and they're just completely off the deep end, what does that leave you with? In other words, the only thing that we're left with, aside from the Almighty himself, are American judges. Judges who are sane. Judges who are going to do what Judge Jonker did in Michigan. Judges who are going to look at some of this nonsense that they're trying to ram down our throat and say, absolutely not. That's unconstitutional. You can't do that to a Catholic church. Joe mentioned yeshivas. You can't do it to a yeshiva. You can't do it to a school that's founded and run by Muslims. Okay? You can't do this. They have the right to teach what they want. And another thing, too, we need to hammer this home. Hate lists. We have to figure out a way. We need to do some research how we can fight against this, because when you compile a hate list, and on that list you put organizations, groups, individuals who hold certain deeply held religious beliefs and you call them haters, there has to be a legal remedy for that. I gotta believe that there's some sort of remedy where you could sue somebody for libel or defamation of character, because that's, would you agree that that's disgusting?
Oh, it is disgusting.
Hate lists?
Well, they're calling the Bible a book of hate.
Right. And they're calling the Catholic Church an organization, a hateful organization.
You're bucketing us with white supremacists because, again, we just believe that marriage is between one man and one woman. Right. I don't hate you because you're gay. All I'm saying is I don't, to be honest with you, acknowledge your marriage.
Right.
I don't acknowledge your marriage. By the way, I don't acknowledge a second marriage outside of the Catholic Church.
Right.
Just so I can go on record.
Right.
For, you know, if people say I'm not consistent, I acknowledge one marriage, just like it says, You're married once, you make a vow before God, and no one can dissolve it.
That's it.
That's what I believe.
But then we talked before about debating. Notice we talk about a debate. Let's say the 500 scientists who you said sent a letter to the United Nations, okay, where the environmentalists don't want to debate them. The so-called LGBT crowd, they don't want to debate people on the natural law. They don't want to debate people on the design of the body and the complementarity of a man and a woman sexually. They don't want to debate they don't want to debate certainly the things we pointed out. What did you say? What are some of the consequences of living that lifestyle to the individual?
Life expectancy for people who live gay lifestyle is 20 years less than a heterosexual, and people who are transgender, they don't make it to 40 on average. Higher rates of drug abuse, higher rates of suicide. All why? Why is that?
Right.
Ask yourself. People will say that the press will say it's because we point fingers at there and impose. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Absolutely not.
Because everyone knows when you're doing something that goes against the natural law. Because when we do that, something breaks inside of us. And it's not just those who are living gay lifestyles. It's anything that goes against the natural law. True. You're a murderer. Right. You're a thief. Something, when you perpetually do something, you're an adulterer. Mm-hmm. Something breaks in you. Your conscience darkens. Your intellect darkens. This is fact. Fact.
But that's why we would emphasize, that's why we have to speak the truth and speak it loudly, because these people, as we are all at certain points in our lives in need of help. Nobody denies that. Again, I'll say a million times, Joe and I don't walk on water. We're not sinless men.
I go to confession every Saturday. Well, I went to confession yesterday. I go every single Saturday.
But the point is, we need to raise our consciousness. We need to tell people, listen, you're being, like we mentioned also about Walt Heyer and other people who were lied to. You in the LGBT community, the rank and file, the ones who are listening to the liars, the people who lie to you in this world under any circumstances are the ones who hate you. And the person who genuinely cares about your life, who truly loves you, is the one that tells the truth. You need to get that through your head. Nobody's doing you any favors by lying to you. Nobody. Because it leads to a path of destruction, as Joe just described. I don't want you to die at 40 years old. I don't want you to blow your brains out. I don't want you to mutilate yourself. Not because I hate you, because I love you. And Joe loves you. And yes, dare I say, the Catholic Church loves you. So get that through your head. Your people are lying to you. We are not. I think that was a fairly meaty discussion, if you ask me.
Well, here's an interesting, talked about remarriage. Basically, regarding remarriage, I could just speak to it from a Catholic perspective. If a Catholic is married and divorced and they go through an annulment process, by the way, that's not an easy process, and it's not given out like candy. Basically, your marriage is tried, and then it goes to another diocese where it's tried again, almost like a court. You have a prosecutor and a defender of your marriage. Now, what makes a marriage unsacramental and not valid? Basically, you didn't live up to your vows. What were the vows? Faithful, fruitful. Faithful, fruitful, and full consent.
Mm-hmm, full consent.
You have to have. Now, what would be something that you're not fruitful? You're contracepting. You had no intention of being open to life. That is something that your marriage is not sacramental. That is something where you could have grounds for an annulment. But if you went in with full consent, you are fully faithful, and you're fruitful, your marriage is bound. You're bound to God. I am married to my wife, whether I live with her or not. And if I am with another woman, I am committing adultery. If I get married again, in the eyes of God, I am committing adultery. In the eyes of God, I have one wife, and she's upstairs right now. We're in our basement right now. No matter what, God said this. If you believe in the Bible, you believe in that, and you can't take that out of the Bible. And like I said, an annulment, which is what the press says and what people say, it costs money, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. It costs $400, and that's paperwork that usually takes 2 years. My friend got a divorce. It cost him $365,000. Juxtapose that to $400. That's number one. Number two, basically, it's not given out like candy. So That's why when you make a vow before God, you better take it serious.
Mm-hmm.
You better take it serious.
But and the thing is too, just but to make mention, but when the annulment is granted, all right, and
you're free to marry again. And what do they say? It basically says you're married.
You were never married the
sacramentally.
First time. Right.
Sacramentally.
Right.
You were civilly. They recognize you have to. By the way, to get an annulment, you have to have a civil divorce. You can't apply for the annulment before you have a civil divorce. And it's not just given out. Mm-hmm. People always say, "Oh, the church buys annulments." No, they don't.
No, they don't.
It's a very detailed process. But that's from a Catholic perspective. I'm Catholic. I don't pick and choose what I believe, and I believe in that. I am married once, and that is it.
Well, remember something too. It's always, you know, when we won't get too long-winded on it, but the idea too is that it's always the knock against the Catholic Church is the church is not merciful. The church is not understanding of individual circumstances. And those are all lies. The fact is there is an annulment process for the simple reason that the church understands that people in different circumstances might have entered into a marriage, and that marriage has to, like you said, it has to hit certain criteria. And if those criteria were not met, then the church could rule that that marriage was never valid, and then that person is granted the annulment. But again, the church does this because the church understands. They understand. Some husbands go into a marriage and they're not, and vice versa. They're not truthful with their spouse. They're hiding something.
Absolutely.
It didn't come out until afterwards.
They're drug addicts.
They're drug addicts. Or they were married, but they lied to the person, and it comes out. These are circumstances where the church extends that mercy. Okay, but what the church safeguards against is, I'm tired of my wife. I want a divorce.
What
that doesn't work.
Also says which is in the Bible, and we're going off on a tangent here, but I think it's important. It says what God binds, no man can break. That's biblical.
That's where Jesus brings it to the level of a sacrament.
And by the way, that applies to evangelical Christians too.
Right.
That doesn't. You can't just pick and choose what you believe.
Well,
doesn't just apply to Catholics. It applies to Baptists, Methodists, Lutherans. It's the same Bible. It's clear as day. You either believe it or you don't. And by the way, if you don't believe in everything, you're God. You're God. You either believe in God, who was crucified and rose from the dead, and you believe in everything he taught, or you don't, and now you're God, and you determine what's right or wrong.
And then you could be a member of the neo-pagan environmental religion that worships Gaia.
And you could care about cats.
And you're declawing cats. And we're gonna end this. We're gonna end this show with something that ran through the whole thing. To all the lefties in their neo-pagan environmental religion, the same thing we said to the Attorney General of Michigan. Screw you! All right, with your false religion. We're tired of it. We're getting it rammed down our throat. And that's why the Frontline and Joe and Joe is gaining ahead of steam. That's why we're getting hundreds and hundreds of views, and we're getting thousands of views. That's why people are watching us, because we're telling the truth. That's it. Because these conversations are exactly the conversations that are going on across America. Those conversations that we're having are your conversations, and that conversation that's going on everywhere. So we'll see you next week on Facebook Live, 8 o'clock next Sunday night and every Sunday night. Please like and share the program. Share it with your friends. Spread the word, because we're telling the truth.
Thank you for listening.
See you next time.